course, Rolling Stone did an absolute huge Eddie Van Halen tribute issue, though it was a digital exclusive, so it wasn't printed. I hope they do print it, though, because they had a whole bunch of stuff. They have a new article by Brian Hyatt called Chronicling the History of Eddie Van Halen, called The Joy and Pain of Rock's Last Guitar Superhero. They had How Eddie Van Halen Reshaped Rock Guitar by Corey Groh, as well as a podcast tribute to Eddie Van Halen, which had Greg Renoff featured in it. They had a tributes from Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath, Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine, Joe Satriani, Gene Simmons of Kiss, Ted Templeman, the producer, as well as Steve Perry from Journey. And they also had Eddie Goes Deep on his Guitar Heroes, which we talked about in our last episode, which was the 2011 Lost interview, a reprint of his 1995 Rolling Stone interview for Balance, where he was on the cover, as well as a 1984 story by Debbie Miller called Van Halen's Split Personality. And Dave, that was a cover story that was never a cover. So who do you think made the cover instead of Van Halen in 1984?
In 1984?
1984, they did a whole huge story on Van Halen.
Michael Jackson.
No, Bob Dylan, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Unbelievable, only Rolling Stones. It was a really nice package. I hope they do a print version, like I said. If you want to read it, check it out. It's at rollingstone.com/Eddie-Van-Halen-special-rolling-stone-tribute /. So that is where you can check that out. And also in there is Rolling Stone's Eddie Van Halen Top 20 Greatest Solos. And can you guess what they listed as number one, Dave?
Eruption?
No, Ain't Talking About Love was number one. Number two was Eruption. Number three, I'm the One. Number four, Ice Cream Man. Number five, You're No Good. Number six, Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Number 7, Spanish Fly. Number 8, Mean Street. Number 9, Beat It. Number 10, Push Comes to Shove. Number 11, Cathedral. Number 12, Panama. Number 13, Drop Dead Legs. Number 14, Hot for Teacher. Number 15, Jump. Number 16, Dreams. Number 17, Mine All Mine. Number 18, Right Now. Number 19, Humans Being. And do you know what the last one was, Dave?
Yes, it was a side project Eddie did with... Oh, give me a second.
Oh, you're wrong anyway.
Okay, then never mind. Then I don't know.
It was Chinatown off A Different Kind of Truth.
Okay.
That's kind of cool.
Very wrong.
So definitely check that out. Rolling Stone did a great job. Please, Rolling Stone, print that, because that was definitely worth printing. Also happening with Eddie, all kinds of tributes. Eddie Van Halen guitar auction is happening on December 5th. 2 Eddie Van Halen guitars will go up for auction via the Icons and Idols Trilogy Rock and Roll section under Julian's Auctions. They have a 2004 Eddie Van Halen Charvel Art Series, as well as a customized electric guitar by Matt Brock. They're expected to go for $60,000 to $80,000 each. They're hand-striped by Ed, built to 5150. That's all happening. Check that out if you're in the mode for buying a guitar. Dave, you think you could spring for 60 to 80K?
You know, if I play guitar, maybe, but it's something way too expensive to hang on my wall.
That's right. Dave thinks twice whether he's going to buy a burrito or not, so I don't think he's going to be springing for a guitar.
But I would buy 2 burritos and a root beer float.
Oh, there you go. Or a bottle of anything and a glazed donut. So,
to go.
To go. Also, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, who did that tribute for Eddie at the Rock Hall, paid tribute to Eddie on his new EP called Comandante. The song is called Secretariat. It's an instrumental track that has the Eddie Van Halen flavor, and here's a clip. So as you can tell, it's very, very EVH, but it has Tom Morello's kind of edgy, rough style. It's a really nice track, so guys, check that out. It's just a little nod to Eddie. What did you think of this track, Dave?
Reminds me a lot of Cathedral.
Yes, it does have that vibe, right? Well, A Canadian artist by the name of Paul Archer, who works in the airbrushing industry, created a huge mural on the back of his airbrushing shop in Victoria. It's a 1982 picture of Eddie Van Halen playing as Frankenstraat, wearing his red and white stripe overalls. You guys can check that out online. What a beautiful job he did. Unbelievable, Paul. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Isn't that incredible?
That was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
Just
Wow.
unreal. What a beautiful tribute. And I really think something like that should be down at the Sunset Strip. Somebody should do that right down there. They're also going to be an Eddie Van Halen memorial in Pasadena. The Pasadena City Council planned on an Eddie Van Halen memorial in his hometown. Apparently, they're either going to name a street after him or have a monument. That's still being decided. So hopefully that'll come to pass so we can, obviously pay proper tribute to Eddie because, my God, who's bigger coming out of Pasadena than Eddie Van Halen, right? So David Lee Roth. Remember him, Dave? Remember when we saw old Dave back in January of 2020? It seems like it was about 10 years ago at this point.
Doesn't it? Yes, it does.
It's just unbelievable. But what did we get? We got a new song from Dave. He dropped a single. It's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and here's a clip.
Somewhere over the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Well, I never knew me a better time, and I guess I never will. Somewhere over the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Some say they was happy then, me, I'm happy still.
And that's right. And on the cover art, he wrote a dedication to Eddie where he says, "Hey, Ed, I'm going to miss you. See you on the other side." The song is from the infamous California Sessions album with John Five. Greg Bissonette is on drums. Brett Tuggle's on keys. This guy named Louis Conte does percussion. I don't know, man. Are we getting a David Lee Roth album before this year is over? What is going on?
It's funny you say this guy, Louis Conte. Louis Conte is a well-known percussionist.
This guy.
No, he is. It's so funny, like this guy. And I know him because he played with Michael Nesmith.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Always a monkey reference with this guy.
Of course, right. It's interesting because on the album that he played with, Michael decided he didn't need a drummer. He just wanted a percussionist. So Louis carries the whole album that way, just with percussion, and does a phenomenal job. But Michael Nesmith likes to talk about this guy because he said, Louis showed up. He had just been on a worldwide tour with Madonna.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And here he is, playing this stuff with me. So Louis is not a lightweight by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay.
He is not just a percussionist. He is arguably the percussionist. Very good guy.
To Mr. Conte and his family, I say, mea culpa, mea culpa.
But yeah, great players on that. Yeah, when is Dave going to come out with the album? Because he did.
No.
Are we going to talk about the other thing he released?
Well, yes, we're going to get into that. I just wanted to say that the song has sort of a damn good vibe. Just like John Five said, it's kind of storytelling with an acoustic playing. It's very catchy, actually, and kind of fun. Great lyrics. Not a rock song, but that's okay as long as it's good. It's something fresh. I'm down with that. And, of course, David Lee Roth teased this before. Teased this on his Joe Rogan podcast appearance, which is a while ago now, when he was promoting his Tattoo Inc., the original project. Now he's got the Roth Project, which is the rothproject.com. He released this art project called the Roth Project. It's a 17-chapter audio comic book novel, which he did in his Sue Me art and with animation by Colin Smith, and there's narration, plus there's songs at Alligator Pants, Low Res Sunset, the song we just mentioned.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow
Bar and Grill, as well as Manda Bala, and it's available at therothproject.com. And there's also a tutorial, believe it or not, to help you navigate the site. What did you make of the Roth Project, Dave? Here we go.
Right. So, as you know, Dave,
yes,
I'm a big comic
I know
book
where you're
fan.
going.
So I was extremely curious as to how this was going to be.
Right.
So I did sit through it. In fact, I sat through it twice.
Wow.
Because the first time, well, honestly, I couldn't get through it. So But admittedly, like when Dave does non-musical things, it's not my cup of tea.
Right.
Like
right,
his
right.
podcast was never my
Right.
thing or anything
Right.
like that. I will say, though, that the construction and the artwork and just the basic concept of an online comic book is phenomenal. It's striking. That like a lot of hard work went into this. As a piece of art, it's really phenomenal. It's really well done, and it's astounding.
Right.
My challenge with it was I could not really follow the plot.
Yeah, it's
I was
hard.
having trouble
Yeah.
understanding, like, I think I got the plot. You know, it's some futuristic takeover by the machines, by, you know, artificial intelligence. And I was definitely having trouble following the story along because it's like it's coming out of Dave's head. And, you know, when I was done, Dave, you know what I felt like I needed? You know when you would read a book in high school and you'd be like, I have no idea what this is about. I need the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes, sure.
That's what I needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I needed the Cliff Notes
Yeah.
to explain to me who the protagonists were, who the antagonists
Right,
were, what was
right.
the plot, what was the story, what was the background.
Right.
I really had a lot of trouble following that. And for me, it affected my enjoyment of it.
Sure.
Plus,
Sure.
and I was trying to pay really close attention to it. It was interesting because as Dave is telling the story, it's different than what is written down on the screen. So I think he changed his mind as he was writing this or creating this. And they could have used a better spell checker. There were a couple of things there that were spelled
really?
along the
my
way.
God.
Jamaica, for some reason, stood out to me. But I will say, like I said, as a piece of art, it really was well done. And the artwork was cool. But because I couldn't follow along the story too well, it really lessened my enjoyment a lot.
Yeah.
But I give him full credit and full kudos for attempting and finishing such a monumental piece of art.
Yeah, that's true. It really was. It looked like he took a really long time working on it. So kudos to Dave. It was beautifully done. Definitely hard to understand the plot, but it was definitely worth looking into. The rothproject.com. Check it out. Speaking of Dave, an article came out in the Gazette about the University of Iowa, who got a surprise visit from David Lee Roth during halftime, and this is back in September 13th, 1986. The article is by Sam Paxton. At the time, David Lee Roth was playing the Hilton Coliseum on the campus of Iowa State in Ames, Iowa. The marching band played Yankee Rose as Roth conducted while leaping around and kicking in the air, and he was rubbing his butt on some girl and grinding up against her, and Iowa won the game 43-7 versus Iowa State, and it's available on thegazette.com. So check that out. Dave, what did you make of that throwback article?
You know who was happy as a pig in mud? Greg Renoff.
Yep.
Because that was one of the things he had read about doing his research. I guess not for the Van Halen book, but for something else, for his research along the way.
Oh, okay.
You know, he'd been looking for proof of that
Right.
for years.
Right.
And finally, I forget how it happened, but I think the person who wrote the article was like, yeah, I knew somebody who, you know, worked for the press at that time in that city. And he was still there and was like, oh, yeah, I still have it. Or, you know, and so they finally dug it up.
Isn't that crazy?
And, yeah, Dave was there and in all his glory. So it's just one of those things that have been not seen and buried forever. And it finally came out. It really was very interesting. Not one of those things you're used to seeing Dave at.
That's
so that
true.
was
That's true. Yeah, it's pretty wild to
quite
watch.
the sight, yes.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of one Van Halen lead singer, on to another, Sammy Hagar, Dave. His Access TV show, Rock and Roll Road Trip, has come to the end of the road. Rock and Roll Road Trip has wrapped up after 5 seasons. 56 episodes. For its final episode, Hagar did a compilation of his favorite moments, rare footage, bloopers, reflections on his time in Van Halen, as well as a special performance of a bunch of songs. Over the course of the years, he's interviewed Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters, Adam Levine from Maroon 5, Vince Neil from Motley Crue, Alice Cooper, John Mellencamp, Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac, Nancy Wilson of Heart, Willie Nelson, James Hetfield of Metallica, Sarah McLachlan, and John Mayer. So, wow, unbelievable. You know how I think you should have ended it, Dave? With
How?
an interview with David Lee Roth.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh, well, listen, you want to get a ratings booster? Everybody's got to put on their big boy pants.
Yeah, well, those two cannot put on those big boy
They
pants
cannot
when they're in
put
the same
those
room.
pants on. They are old, cranky men who refuse to give up the goat.